Two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts argued. Америка убила иракцев, убила Чечен и Ламунду. Она убила корейцев и вьетнамцев, распространяя демократию. Don't get me started on Stalin and your talent to suffer under SARS, my friend. Your history is long. You also inflicted scars. Two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts argued. They speak in two tongues, but still for hours they talk. The same oxygen in their lungs, the same trail on their spacewalk. Я скучаю по утреннему кофе в Москве, сказал российский космонавт. I miss my dog Laika in the sunrise, said the American astronaut. Я скучаю по жене и домой, сказал российский космонавт. Also miss my wife and just like Charlie the astronaut. Two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts как светит солнце, свет Бога, и как прекрасна голубая земля. Говорится, геи из Роскосмоса. Indeed, search my friend, with hope on our mind, on a mission for mankind. International relations. Two astronauts argued. Two astronauts argued about art, values and international relations. Two astronauts argued. Two astronauts.
Muzika iz starih dobrih dana. Radio nostalgija sa Marsa.
Annika Chende and arguably the first interplanetary hit, Two Astronauts, an anthem to the Great Evacuation, and certainly one of our most popular requests. Speaking of requests, please follow Habitat protocols for sanitation. No liquids other than bodily in the main bin, including pee. Some of you don't like it, but all water is recycled, so pee into the funnel installed next to your toilet, please. Speaking of pee and poop, we recently welcomed our first official little Martian to the colony, and our next caller, Sophia, tells us what it's like to be a new mother on Mars.
Radio was data from Mars.
I'm so happy we moved to Mars. It was a project I funded from the very beginning. I knew it had potential and I trusted the amazing team working on it. As angel investors, my husband and I got early placements in the ARC ship. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute to its success. It was a huge honor to be able to contribute I'm so grateful for the opportunity to further human survival in our solar system. Speaking of the Human Project, I have some exciting news. Just a week ago, we welcomed our baby boy into the world. Words cannot express how overjoyed we are at welcoming little Maxim. Putting him to bed reminds me of my parents. From our window here in Tesla City, we can see the Earth, tiny enough to fit in Maxim's hand. It pains me that my child might never experience the beauty of my home in the Hamptons. The nature, coastline, the old lighthouse, and the food, the houses of our friends, our evening parties, full of life compared to this barren, rugged terrain. I send my little Martian to sleep with a lullaby my mother sang for me. Thanks to these songs, I'm able to retain, at least on a rudimentary level, my mother tongue. She sang like this. Shushti, shushti, bamboo solis, poret moka prozora, noć se tiho spušta na grad, sa nebeskih svodova. Noć se tiho spušta na grad, sa nebeskih svodova.
We did ourselves from Mars.
Thank you, Sophia, for that uplifting news and beautiful song. Life always finds a way. Just as precious as a new life is the water that sustains it. You may have noticed that it doesn't rain here on Mars, so another friendly reminder that showers are strictly limited to 30 seconds each, with no exceptions. Corporate is looking into extending this time frame, but is meeting resistance from Section BC, who want lab rat urine to be excluded from the water recycling program, which would actually reduce allocated shower times to 27 seconds. Want to say in this? Join our sectional weekly meetings and vote while sipping on a relaxing tube of OMAS. Feels good, as it should.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
High speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. A diver's breath in a deep blue sea, bubbles like your thoughts of me. Make up sex on a sunless day, like an airplane on a runaway. Melts like ice cream in the sun, and doesn't fool anyone. Like a desperate man taking his chance, quick as the kiss at your first dance. Keep your eyes open and don't you blink, you'll miss the boat before it sinks. Time passes quickly, life bursts like a bomb, like a child in the morning, will soon be gone. So hold it close and don't waste your breath. The time will come when nothing is left, 'cause life passes quickly, it flies by. Speed on the Autobahn, like spaceship Earth around the sun. Like a diver's breath in a deep blue sea, passes like your thoughts of me. Make up sex on a summer's day, like an airplane on a runaway. eyes open and don't you blink. You'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like bursts like a bomb, like a child in the morning. It will soon be gone. So hold those close and don't waste your breath. The time will come when nothing is left. 'Cause life passes quickly. It flies by.
You're home away from home. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Life passes quickly indeed. Another blast from the past, reminding us to savor each moment as it flies by. Speaking of savoring things, the Health and Well-being Department would like us to remind you that the popping and fizzing noise your dried food makes when you're adding water is perfectly normal and does not mean it has gone off or is contaminated. The Health and Wellbeing Department would also like to take this moment to remind you to take your bone density pills twice a week now, as it was discovered the original dose is off by a factor of 2. Right, on with the show. Music and dancing have always been a mainstay of stress relief and letting go. Our next caller, Merva, recalls her teenage clubbing days with vivid memories of awkward first kisses and a life-altering club experience invoking a philosophical epiphany.
Stories, memories, the good old days, original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama, radio nostalgia from Mars.
So, when I was a kid in Vienna, in high school, we used to learn all the German poets, like Best Friends, Goethe and Schiller. But the first poet that actually spoke to me was Heinrich Heine. I knew a couple of Heine's poems by heart that are now buried somewhere deep in my mind. But one passage about burning books stuck with me. Yes, even till today. So, just to fast forward to college, just a couple of years before the Great Catastrophe, I was walking around Berlin with a group of friends coming from a house party. I still remember that apartment smelling of potatoes. Yes, because we always made pommes and drank schnapps before heading out. Yeah. And after that, I remember passing by Alexanderplatz on that very, very hot night. And next to me was a guy I liked. We kissed before, but I can't say I really remember that. Probably from all the drinking, or maybe he was just a bad kisser. But I can still feel this sticky, sweaty, and very ambivalent feeling of us holding hands. Yeah, anyways, we popped some pills and entered our techno church that, well, now when I think back, I visited more often than my college. And I remember the beat in my chest and all these young bodies moving in this industrial space. I used to love dancing and counting beats in techno songs, but one song was very strange. It just went repetition, and then this female vocal would creep out of nowhere. And then suddenly I felt very dizzy, so I sat on the ground and held my knees closely to my chest. It was some sort of like protective instinct. I was like an animal. And I felt cold sweat dripping down my neck. Ugh. And I'm sure my guy thought I was completely crazy. And then out of nowhere, the Heine lines clearly came to me. I sat there motionless, surrounded by the ugly, hypnotic, delirious atmosphere. And no effort to recall Heine's lines. They were just there, planted in my head. Wilde, düstere Zeiten dröhnen heran und der Prophet, der eine neue Apokalypse schreiben wollte, musste ganz neue Bestien erfinden. Und zwar so erschreckliche, dass die älteren johannischen Tiersymbole dagegen nur sanfte Täubchen und Amoretten wären. Die Götter verhüllen ihr Antlitz aus Mitleid mit den Menschenkindern, ihren langjährigen Pfleglingen und vielleicht zugleich auch aus Besorgnis über das eigene Schicksal. And yeah, 2 years later, I ended up here, on Mars.